Hello everybody, Evil here, or Matt as I call myself when I'm being a little more serious, and this is a little bit more serious of a post. It's an important thing to me, and I really just give it some thought today after playing quite a bit of Sims 4, and it's something I wanted to share with you guys, so if it's something you think you could also be passionate about, get behind, or would like to help me out with, then please take the time to do so. If not, I understand, hey, it's not for everybody, but getting around to the point, it's about The Sims 4, and about the inclusion of handicapped Sims, something I'd like to see, and a lot of people would like to see in the game series itself. It's now 4 iterations deep with countless expansion packs and stuff packs, and still to this day we haven't represented folks who are disabled, whether they're missing an arm or a hand, or just unable to use them or unable to walk. I know these are difficult things for a developer to consider because a lot of people are concerned that it'll make their game depressing. But, this is reality for a lot of people, and I understand that video gaming is an escapist hobby. And in most cases, for example, I would, and I think most disabled people would agree, that if you were to witness a first-person shooter action hero that were in a wheelchair, there better be a pretty good premise behind it. Otherwise, it's just going to come off as cheesy and hokey because, it's not something that is, it's fantastic by nature, so there would have to be some elements added to the story to make it believable. However, The Sims is a life simulator, so the intent behind The Sims is to give you a sandbox based on real life in which you can play around in, and that's great for all of us that are able-bodied, myself included, able to move around, because we can do anything we want to do. We can represent ourselves, as I've done in my Sims series. You can see me. My girlfriend even commented that it's uncanny how good my Sim looks as me, and how similar we are, and that's something I think a lot of us take for granted. Now, I want to fast track back to the past a little bit here and discuss when homosexuality became an issue in The Sims. Now, I hope I don't offend anybody in saying any of this, but the fact of the matter is that 1 in 30 Americans would identify themselves as homosexual, and there was such a clamor to have gay marriages as an option in previous Sim games that it's something that they decided to include. And I realize that's a very easy fix. You just unlock marriage for that and adoption, and you turn off the ability to have babies and so on and so forth. But that's something that we found it so important that we needed to get right on it and make it happen so those people could feel comfortable and represent the kind of relationships that they wanted to represent. Now, the controversial part, and I know a lot of people disagree, this is my personal beliefs, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, I'm not saying homosexuality is a choice, but it is far more of a choice than being disabled is in a lot of cases. For example, my children are not currently in a wheelchair. They are disabled. They have Duchenne muscular dystrophy, but there will come a time that they may face having to be in a wheelchair. And they're, reaching the age now to where they're starting to potentially, for example, my oldest son has never run, never jumped. He has trouble with stairs, standing up off the floor, things like that. And I'm not asking to represent that necessarily in the game, but to make it so that there is a representation of some sort. Again, going back to the homosexuality thing, it's something that at the end of the day, it's a personal choice to be open about your homosexuality. For years and years and years and years, people hid it. And I'm not saying that's okay, that they were forced to live that way, but they could if they wanted, right? And so the inclusion of homosexuality is a great thing for the game because it's including some 9+ million more Americans that were unable to play before. That's always a good thing. 1 in 5 Americans is considered disabled, and 1 in 10 is considered severely disabled. That's 10% of the population. 3.5% of the population identifies themselves as homosexual or gay. And, to me, that's we're taking care of certain groups, but, I feel like it's something that we need to look deeper than what we have, and EA needs to look deeper than they have to include their gamers, because at the end of the day, being handicapped is never a choice. It's not something that you can wake up in the morning and decide whether or not you're going to tell somebody that you meet on the street, because it's usually visible on your person. It's usually something that you wear with you and it becomes a part of your life, much more so than I'd say homosexuality. So like I said, while it's great that there's the inclusion of that in the game, I think it was a little bit of a sin to include that before handicap folks, and that's something I'd like to see changed. And to talk a little bit more about how it could be implemented, I actually watched a great video today that I will link below of a fella who back in February was talking about this as well, and the reasons why he thinks it should be included in it. And I fully encourage you to watch the video. But he brought up the interesting point that, when it comes to wheelchairs and so on like that, you could make it fun. You could make it, give it that unique Sims character that everything else in the world has. There's genies and zombies and vampires and so on. So why couldn't we have, somebody who's in a wheelchair and they're facing stairs, right? You have the option to build your lots, and a lot of people would, to build them handicap accessible. But even if they're stairs, put little rocket boosters on the chair. It was a brilliant idea because it looks fun. It's, it's not patronizing to the handicapped. I mean, we don't want to make it seem like their life is rosy and great and any better than anybody else's or any worse. We just want them to be able to be normal, because that's what most disabled people want. You go down the street, and I even say it in the petition, it's like, if you look at somebody who is disabled and you feel pity for them, that is a form of prejudice. That is a form of wrong prejudice. That is a sin that you need to look at within yourself. And I keep saying sin. Don't get me wrong, I'm not religious. I'm just saying that's something we shouldn't do. So I don't want you to think of it as me saying, is waxing religious or philosophical on this, but it is wrong. And I used to be the same way before I had kids who were facing it. You look at people and you're just like, oh gosh, it would be terrible to be them. Or, I wish I could do something to make their life better, and I mean that while those come off as sometimes positive thoughts, most times most people think they're positive thoughts, the reality is that a person in a wheelchair wishes that it were maybe not so commonplace that you look at them as just a normal person, but that it wasn't even a factor to you. Like color of skin isn't supposed to be a factor, and like sexual preference isn't a factor. Take just a second and sink that in. You look at somebody and you see the color of their skin and you can be prejudiced towards them, and that's wrong. You can look at somebody in the way they act, or that the fact that they're holding hands with another man, and you have prejudice about that, and that's wrong. And you look at somebody who's in a wheelchair and you have the prejudices about them, that is equally as wrong. And it's not something we can control. The same way that I argue against people who are sort of inherently racist or inherently, they don't always mean it, and it's not always ill-intended. As much as anybody, as you'll see from my videos, I can enjoy a good racist joke, but I'm not a bigot. I would never want to hold somebody down based on the color of their skin, or who they sleep with, or being in a wheelchair, or being disabled, or missing an arm, or anything like that. And it's something that I picture myself in my kids' shoes someday, where maybe they are unable to do normal things and they sit down and their escape is video games. They sit down and they play a game. And what is it we all do when we're on The Sims? We want to make ourselves, and we want to put ourselves in unique, fantastic situations. We want to get the hot girl and land the awesome job. Let these people be able to do that. You know what I mean? It's one thing to say, yeah, well, maybe they want to escape from where they're at, but they shouldn't. It shouldn't be something that is forced upon them. Like, sure, I'm sure even if you put wheelchairs in the game, some disabled people are going to make a ton of able-bodied Sims, and they'll have a blast with them. They may even make themselves as able-bodied. But by the same token, the people who want to make themselves as they are, because they're proud of who they are, don't have that ability. And inherently, to me, that would make me feel like I shouldn't be proud of who I am, because I can't be a person in this world. I don't exist in this world. So I'm putting out an open call to EA. I've put up a petition. Again, please check it out below. It's on my Facebook. I'm going to put it everywhere I can and get it out there. I think it's something that should at least be brought up. It's in EA's court if they decide to do it and how they decide to do it. I would like to see it go so far as something that can happen to your children, that can happen to your main sim, but make it a clickable where you can turn it off so people who don't want to play with disabled Sims, they don't have to. I realize some people might say, well, hey, that's still prejudice, that's still wrong, but that allows people to play the game they want, but it also gives the power to the disabled person playing The Sims 4 to be able to play. This is 10 to 20% of our society of people who cannot make themselves in The Sims. We can make all skin colors, we can make all races, we can make all sexualities. I don't necessarily want to see cancer or illnesses like terminal disease become something that we see in The Sims. But that is something that I've witnessed myself, other YouTube videos of people who have played out such stories in their games because they can create that story and through screenshots and through video clips and so on, make that story real for themselves. But you can never, as a person in a wheelchair, play out a story of a character in a wheelchair. It can't be done. And I want to see some tools for that. Let's see a couple of wheelchairs. Let's see some interactions that wheelchair people can use to enter the game. I know it'll be an awful lot of work, but I guarantee you if you do it, it will sell. It will make headlines. The community of disabled out there will be overjoyed. And maybe before, where they were sour about playing your game, or they played it and loved it and enjoyed every bit of it, they'll love it that much more and tell their friends and be able to show themselves off and create video stories about themselves like I do. That's all I want for these people, is for them to be able to do as they do. So anything you've taken in offense for any reason previously, I'm not one who apologizes for offending people, because I've always been the type who says that people should be less sensitive. But in this case, this is wrong, and this is something we need to fix, and something I would love to be able to say that I had a part in fixing. So help me out. Your attention in watching this whole video has been appreciated. Basically, if you go to my petition, it's the same gist in the body of the text there, so you don't have to reread that if you see the video. Just sign the thing. Let's get as many signers as we can. Share it to everybody you can. This is something I'd love to be able to at least deliver on EA's doorstep, so it's in their heads if it's not already. It's something that we've put out there and said, look, we would really like to see this, and it's important to people. It's important to the emotional well-being of some people who would play this game, to give them the opportunity to feel normal, like the rest of us do. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your support.